Hi, I'm Pam and I'm here to talk about video games. Today I'm going to be talking about my most anticipated games that are hopefully going to be coming out in 2021. This is something I did last year, and there were two games that I talked about in that video that never ended up coming out, and hopefully they will come out this year. One of them I'm more excited about, and one of them a little less excited. The first one is Hollow Knight SilkSong. This is the follow-up to Hollow Knight, of course, and I really love Hollow Knight. It's probably one of the best Metroidvanias out there. In this sequel, you play as Hornet, who is a character you fought a number of times in the first game and is more of a sort of like faster-moving, agile character than the protagonist in the first one, so I'm super looking forward to this. In fact, I've been replaying Hollow Knight just a couple days ago. Despite all of the new games I have to play, I really just wanted to replay Hollow Knight, so I started a brand new save and I'm making my way through it. I've gone through a few areas already, so I'm really excited about this. I've actually sort of boarded the Switch train since last year. Last year when I talked about it, I mentioned I would probably wait for it to come out on Xbox, but now that I am a Switch user, I will be able to grab this day one as soon as it comes out, and hopefully that's this year. And the other game, of course, that was my most anticipated for last year, but never came out, is Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. This is a game I was so excited about. I've made a number of videos about how excited I was and sort of a little bit on the development progress, but it has been delayed a number of times, and there's also been some worrying news coming out about Brian Mitsoda being fired and Kara Ellison leaving, so I'm a little more anxious than I once was about this game's eventual release. I hope that the story and everything has mostly been done before those two left, but yeah, hopefully it comes out this year, hopefully it's great, but I'm a little bit worried. However, even if Bloodlines 2 doesn't release, or if it doesn't meet expectations, there is no shortage of World of Darkness games coming out in the near future. One that I'm particularly excited about is Vampire the Masquerade Swansong. This one is made by a company called Big Bad Wolf, I think? Yes, Big Bad Wolf, and they made a game called The Council, I think 2 years ago. And The Council is like a narrative adventure game, kind of Telltale style, but I enjoyed the style a lot more, and though it had its problems, it was a really interesting game, and I liked how they approached role-playing, so I'm really interested to see how this will come out. So it will be a vampire role-playing game, but, you know, not a huge sort of open world one. It'll be more of like a linear track, although obviously you make a lot of decisions. And in this one, you play as 3 different characters, and something that I find particularly interesting is that you are not a fledgling vampire. All of these vampires are about 100 years old, so they already know how things work. So I'm really excited to see more about Swansong, and I don't know, it might actually be my most anticipated of the World of Darkness games right now. Another World of Darkness game that is coming out soon is Werewolf the Apocalypse Earthblood, and this is developed by Cyanide. It's coming out on February 4th, I believe, and this is a third-person action RPG which is about werewolves, obviously. And Werewolf the Apocalypse is a setting that I don't know nearly as much about as I do Vampire the Masquerade, but I did play a visual novel based on it last year, and I reviewed it, and I really enjoyed the setting. It's a lot about not just werewolves, but also like environmentalism and like fighting the forces that are making pollution and destroying the environment, and like fighting corporations and stuff like that. So it's a really interesting setting, I think. And though at first I was like, I don't know if I want to do werewolf combat because I'm not like a huge melee kind of person, but I think it will be interesting. The setting looks excellent. I haven't played much by Cyanide, so I don't know the quality of them as a developer, but it looks like an interesting game, and it's probably the one on this list that's going to be out first. But wait, there are even more vampire games coming out. The next one I'm anticipating is called Nighthawks, and this is a game I backed on Kickstarter a few years back. It has a really good pedigree. It's being written by Richard Cobbett, who designed and wrote games like Sunless Skies and Sunless Sea, which are just like really cool, excellently written games. The art is by Ben Chandler, who does beautiful, beautiful work, and it's being published by Wadget Eye, who is one of the best adventure game makers out there today. So I was very excited when this appeared on Kickstarter. It was also very much inspired by Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. In fact, I feel like this was a game that was supposed to like quench the thirst for that series. Of course, it was announced far before the actual Bloodlines 2 and World of Darkness made this like big resurgence in gaming. So I feel a little bad for the developers here, because now they're taking something that once, there wasn't much available for, and now there's a lot of games in this world and a lot of sort of like paranormal vampire games. But I'm still really looking forward to this one. It's sort of more of a visual novel type adventure, and this takes place in a world where vampires and humans know about each other. They sort of have to coexist, so that's a big part of the game. You play a bar owner who is trying to sort of make a nightclub empire as you go, and it looks really good. Of course, I've been getting the Kickstarter updates and really looking forward to this one eventually being released. The next game is something I just found out about recently. It is called Sherlock Holmes Chapter 1, and it is another Sherlock game by Frogwares. They've made a number of these, and I've really enjoyed them. My favorite one has been Crimes and Punishments, but they've also done a few newer ones, and this is a sort of like young Sherlock Holmes and learning the story of how he became the great detective. And one thing I really like about this is that it takes place on a Mediterranean island rather than in London, so I'm really happy for a change of scenery. It looks like it's going to be an open world detective game where you solve a number of cases. And yeah, I don't know too much about it yet. I've really just seen the Steam page for it, but I really like the Frogwares Sherlock Holmes games. They've got really interesting ways of doing deductions and things, so I'm looking forward to this one too. So the next one I'm looking forward to is called 12 Minutes, and I first found out about this at an Xbox event, I think in 2019, and it is a sort of top-down thriller game that has time loops in it. The game starts out, you are having dinner with your wife, and the police bust in and accuse her of murder, and then they kill her. And then you sort of wake up again at the beginning and have to figure out what you can do to sort of get your way out of this situation. And it just looks really cool. The top down is such an interesting perspective for this kind of game. It's got really good voice acting. It's got Daisy Ridley and James McAvoy. And I just think that time loops are such like a rich opportunity for storytelling. It reminds me a lot of Outer Wilds, which is honestly one of the best games ever, and just how you have to experience the world and experience the story, learn something from it, and then take it into your next loop through that 12 minutes. So this looks really interesting, and I'm very much looking forward to it. Next up is another indie called Chinatown Detective Agency, and as soon as I saw this game, I knew that it was like totally in my wheelhouse. It's a game that is inspired by the Carmen Sandiego games, and I played so much of Broderbunds, Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, as a kid. I was just addicted to that game, and this is inspired by that, but it takes place in a sort of near future, cyberpunk, neon kind of world where you're taking on cases and having to manage both time and money in order to sort of survive and be able to work on and solve all these cases. It looks really beautiful. I love the concept. Apparently you're going to need to do some sort of real world research, just like in Carmen Sandiego. So like knowing about the world or certain things in history. I'm not exactly sure what it's going to be, but it just looks really interesting. I really love the art style. I believe a demo has been available for a while, which I haven't tried just because I'm waiting for the full thing, but it looks really, really good. I'm also very much looking forward to Axiom Verge 2. Axiom Verge 1 was an excellent Metroidvania game and also a very challenging one, and this looks to be very similar but also very different. You can tell based on the art style and the movement and things, it's obviously sort of part of the same lineage, but it takes place in a completely different world, and I'd say this almost looks more fantasy, whereas the first one seemed a little more sci-fi. It's just a much more interesting color palette, like it's not so stark and harsh, and you have all different powers, you got a new character, new weapons, and yeah, really looking forward to it. Don't know a ton about it yet, but that will be one I will definitely play as soon as it comes out. And another retro-inspired game with beautiful pixel art is Cyber Shadow, and this is made by the makers of Shovel Knight, which was just a delightful game when I played it a few years ago. It was just sort of takes that 8-bit look and sound, but just makes it better and fuller and has wonderful controls and levels and things like that. This one is more of a Ninja Gaiden inspired game, so you're doing more ninja stuff, you're moving a little faster, movement's a little more fluid. It looks absolutely beautiful. One of the things that really surprised me about Shovel Knight was the sort of nice and touching story it had, so I'm hoping that this game sort of continues that tradition. I'm very confident that this will be a great game that I will probably like more than the original Ninja Gaiden, and yeah, look forward to playing it. So I just got a few honorable mentions now. The first one is State of Decay 3. This is on here just because I doubt that this game will actually come out in 2021 since it was just announced not too long ago. Also because though I loved State of Decay 1, in 2, they kind of took away most of the things that I liked about the game and really went for that sort of like multiplayer, randomly generated kind of style. So I'm hoping in 3 it goes back more towards where the first game was. But either way, I don't think we'll be seeing this until 2022, so maybe it will appear more in a video next year. I'm also very much anticipating the Disco Elysium Final Cut, which is supposed to come out in a couple months. This is apparently going to add voice acting to the entire game, which is a lot of voice acting. Again, I've already played this last year. It was my game of the year in 2 years ago now. It was my game of the year in 2019. And yeah, just looking forward to giving it another play once this final cut comes out. And lastly, Darkest Dungeon 2, a game I love and hate, but mostly love. This is something I'm really looking forward to. I've lost many, many hours to playing this game. It's coming out in early access in 2021. And of course, I don't play early access games, so I'm thinking this is probably more of a 2022, 2023 game by the time I finally get to play it, but I do have my eye on it. So that's it for the games that I'm most anticipating coming out this year. Hopefully they all actually do come out this year. Leave me a comment and let me know some things that you're looking forward to. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Also, next time you see me, I will be in a different room in my new apartment. You can probably tell all my art is packed, all my books and games are packed, which is why you get these boxes as decoration. That's really all that I've got in here right now.